Hey everyone, it's Sonal Dave, award-winning Celebrant, Toastmaster, and public speaking expert, and it's 9 p.m. And I did say that I would be on this evening at 9 p.m., and here I am. Now I'm really excited with my guest today, who I'm going to have on for this session, because this guest is journaling is his thing. Happiness, gratitude, journaling, all about being a better person and getting the best out of you, and also how journaling helps with neurodiversity, neurodiverse conditions, and the neurodivergent mind. So I won't take up too much time, and I'm going to invite him on right now. A little round of applause and a little drum roll as I bring Shaileen Shah onto the screen. Hey, Shaileen, thank you for being here today with me.
Hi there. No, thank you for the opportunity to join you on your launch. Very excited about it. And super congratulations on creating these journals and launching today.
Thank you so much. And for giving up your evening as well. I hope you've had dinner and some relaxation time. But for many people who might be watching now or maybe watching it later, tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Shaileen Shah. I'm a happiness coach, speaker, and trainer. And through Happy Life Habits, my company, positively impact people's happiness and well-being levels. So we help to rewire hearts and minds for happiness, optimism, positivity.
And is that for adults, teenagers, young children? Who's it for?
In reality, it's across the board. So that's one of the things I struggled with where, in business, they talk about having a business avatar or your ideal customer or client. That's where I struggled. But in reality, I see happiness for everyone. And in practice, it's across the board, but majority of the people do seem to be professionals and, 35 plus age
Ah,
wise.
and I think there's probably a little challenge in here for you about how do we get that younger generation? Because if they can learn from a young age to, have gratitude, to be happy, to kind of almost understand that conflict and challenge is going to be part of life, but how to manage it so that as they get older, life becomes easier as opposed to harder. And then you become an adult and they go, oh, I need to look into this now. What would you say to that?
No, absolutely. So you're spot on. These are life skills. You know, uh, Gratitude, journaling, emotional regulation, mindfulness, public speaking, like you share, and all of these things are, life skills for people. And the earlier they learn, the better they have these tools accessible to them to be able to use, and more they can hone those skills and practices. And so I've taken it into a few schools, but still a lot of work to do. But
Brilliant.
definitely, the earlier we can learn, the better.
Absolutely. And I'm right behind you on that because I'm all for life skills from a really toddler age upwards.
Hmm.
But Shelley, from your experience, what have you found to be the sort of one or two challenges that communities face?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of related ones, and I thought about this one. So, from my perspective, I see two related ones, and I'll call them isolation stroke connection. And then I'll share another one. So, this idea of connection, where we've lost connection with each other, whether it's family members, or deeper connection is what I mean by connection, but family members with our neighborhood, with our community, and so forth. And that's often leading to many more people feeling isolation or loneliness, and that having its impacts of depression and mental health. So that's one part, and that the other one related to it, I think, is this idea of time poverty and distraction. So people are busy, don't have the time, but that's, I feel, a lot of the time it's because they're distracted on various things which may not be the most important things for them to look at and work with. So those are a couple of the things I think are out there and growing.
Okay. And in the context of neurodiversity and the Asian community, um, do you see people or hear people talking about neurodiversity, neurodiverse conditions? What's been your experience?
Yeah, so for me, the actual term neurodiversity is a fairly new one. So I've not heard of it so much, but have in the last year or year and a bit come across it more and then looked into it and learned a bit more about it. I have come across the terms of autism and ADHD and so forth. So some of these have come across, but I haven't seen so many talks or workshops or explanations of people sharing about this so much. It's starting to be a bit more, maybe people are opening a bit more and talking about it more, but it's still a long way to go. I mean, mental health is just becoming a bit more of a mainstream subject now that people are aware of and able to talk about, and it's been there for many years. So there's still, I think, a long way to go with regards to, diversity. But hopefully, with the work you're doing and with people talking about their experience of it and talking them in communities and schools and workplaces and training being provided, more and more people become aware, and then it becomes better for everyone to be able to be in those situations.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. And the more and more we stop being afraid of talking about, as you said, mental health is, starting to become mainstream. But again, if you say to somebody, I think, Joe Bloggs has got mental health conditions, everyone runs a mile because
Yeah.
they don't really understand the spectrum of mental health. And actually, they don't understand that we all have mental health. And sometimes we have good days and not so good days. And in fact, with the world of neurodiversity and having neurodivergent mind, it can be the same. It can be there can be days where they can be so hyper focused and get so much done, and then other days where they don't get as much done, but they'll get little bits done. Or um, sometimes they can be seen as the aggressive, loud, shouting child, but actually that's because they don't just are not sure how to get their message out and be heard. So there's a lot of understanding that needs to come, both for adults and children with neurodiverse conditions, but also that with more understanding, that then supports down the line mental health as well. So there
Yeah.
is the twofold journey that comes through there. So journaling, I know journaling is one of the things that you practice, but it's also one of the things that you help others to learn how to do and get the best out of journaling. So tell us more about your journey with journaling.
Yeah, so for journaling for me, it's been pretty much a daily practice for the last 6.5 years. Mine's combined with gratitude, so I call it gratitude and journaling. I use a journal, and there's a morning routine and an end of day routine. And I came across this partly where I had suffered work-related stress, and got reminded of gratitude and journaling and mindfulness and various practices. So I started applying those and find myself better to manage and cope with the stress as well as other life challenges. And those practices helped me feel good. They helped both my physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And in learning more about it, I've seen that journaling helps with and is advocated by Mind and others for mental health and emotional well-being. Because if we're holding it in our head and we're just constantly holding it, it's going to chew us up. But by getting it out of our heads and putting it on paper and journaling it, it helps get it out of our heads and maybe give us a different perspective on it. So those were some of the aspects. And I found journaling and the research I've learned from the science of happiness is, it can help with um, getting better sleep, dealing with stress, raising awareness, improving our performance. It lets us see our growth because we've captured our life in a journal. And journaling can be of various types. It could be a free format where you're just putting down your thoughts and your feelings, or it could be structured with some guided questions, or it can be a mixture of these things. And I think you've highlighted it. It also needn't be a physical journal. There's various ways people can be expressing and communicating and allowing these things to be shared.
Yeah, and it's interesting because probably can't remember what I say 5 or 10 years ago. Or actually, when I became self-employed and started my own business, and I started hearing words of, "Oh, everyone should journal, and we should all understand gratitude," and all these words, and I was like, "Really?" and we have to write it down. And I was like, no, I'm a communicator. I'm a spoken word communicator. And the more I was researching around journals and that whole concept of being able to, you know, go through whatever's happened, and that can be both good and not so good days, and then being able to really look at it and say, well, was it something I did? Did I trigger what happened? Is it, was it an external factor that made what happened? So when you start, whether you're writing it, whether you're drawing it, because for some individuals, especially some with the neurodivergent mind, actually drawing and doodling is their way of kind of going through the journey of the day that they've been through, and sort of coming out the other end about accepting and letting go. Now, sometimes the accepting and letting go doesn't happen straight away. As you know, sometimes you have to sort of fester on it a bit and go back and look at it again and think about what is going on and what's happening. And, as you said, you might look back and then the same situation may happen again. And then you'll have learned from what happened 3 days ago or a week ago. So it is quite important. And I think I definitely have learnt to understand that, okay, if I don't want to write it down, that's okay. I might want to have a day where I'm doodling and drawing, and that's okay. And if I want to talk about it, I can. And it's quite interesting because people talk about the journal being your safe place. And I'm often, my hubby often finds me talking to my two dogs about what happened during the day. So they're almost my, my safe space to say, oh my God, you'll never guess what happened today. And so did this. And then that happened. And they look at me like I'm mad and like, what's happened to mummy? But they'll just sit there and listen. So
Yes.
I think it's important to understand that journaling can be different for different people. But if everyone can find a way that works for them, and that's again both adults and children, then it's just part of how it's a life skill that's helping them on their journey. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And what I'm about to share is something I know you already know, and I learned, many years ago, that we all have different learning styles. So some are visual, some are auditory, so they need to hear it, and some are kinesthetic, so they need to use their hands and be involved with movement and so forth. And similarly, if that's the way we learn, it's also the way we communicate, and that's part of, I think, this whole awareness thing, to understand that people will process and differently from the way we do, and communicate in different from the way we do. And so for us to be able to interact with as many different people as possible, if we've got that awareness, then we're able to hopefully develop the skills to best bring what's required to have that best communication with those different people at different times.
Absolutely. I think you started to mention earlier, but I think I definitely would be interested, and I'm sure others who are watching now and maybe later, a little bit more about the science of journaling and how the brain engages. And I'm probably saying this really wrong because I don't know the science as well as you do. I think it'd be quite interesting to hear how that works.
Sure. So some of what I'll share is taking journaling and applying it with gratitude and mindfulness as aspects. So when we journal, and if we're writing things down, we're slowing down a little bit than just thinking it, because that aspect of writing it is a motor skill happening, and our brain needs to think what we're writing and see it. So we're slowing down so we can reflect on it. So that is one aspect of the science and the journaling, that the brain goes at a different speed. The other thing is that we've got so many thoughts in our heads, and sometimes we hold and carry those thoughts for a long time, and they could be positive thoughts or they could be not so helpful thoughts. And as we shared, by writing it down, it frees up the brain, and a couple of actually a bit more on, I think, the neuro side of it. So it's not directly on the journaling part, but just on the, so our brain is about 3% of our body weight. So 1.5, I think, pounds or kilograms, I can't remember, but 3% of our body weight, and it uses 20% of our energy. So it's very small, but it uses a heck of a lot of our energy. So if it's using a lot of energy, we need to allow it to refuel as well as, dissipate some of that energy. So that's one part. The other is our brain has something like 86 billion neurons, huge number of the neurons. And those neurons can connect with each other and create 100 trillion connections. So that potential is vast, which means that each person has so much potential, and the way they look at things and the way they process things can be completely different. So what you see and the way you process something can be completely different from mine when we're experiencing the same thing. So those are some of the aspects. But coming back to the journaling, again, it's, when it's a good experience and we're journaling, it can help us relive those good moments and savor those good moments and release those happy chemicals into our system and help in that manner. And if it's a distressing or a bad moment, and we're reflecting on that, it can allow us to be aware, and we can then choose to reframe it and learn from it and say, okay, this is how it happened, but this is how I would like it to have happened. And if we can replay that in our mind, and our mind doesn't know, or our brain doesn't know what's real and what's imaginary, and we do that many a time, we can rewire it, we can create a new neural network. And so that next time that similar situation occurs and it triggers, we do a different response. And that's, I think, part of this growth and learning and reflection that the journaling allows us to do, to handle things in a different way and to grow from our experiences.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because like a lot of things about our body, we just take it for granted that, our legs make us walk and our hands pick up things and our brain functions. But actually there is almost a need to understand our own bodies a lot more. I saw that you are offering some, is it workshops, or you've got some activities coming up? It'd be lovely to hear about what you've got planned.
Sure. Yeah. So I've got some workshops that I'll be doing on journaling, but the flagship offering I have is a 30-day gratitude and journaling habit immersion training course. And with this, we take a step-by-step approach over the 30 days using a happiness journal and help people develop those habits over that time period in a gentle manner. And we measure their gratitude at the beginning of the training. We measure it at the end, and people can see their growth over that. And it's a mixture of science, it's a mixture of practice, and a private Facebook group for sharing, some additional material. So it's really quite a nice, cohesive environment to immerse yourself and develop these practices. So that's one thing that's on offer
And if
there.
people wanted to find out more about that, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. So happylifehabits.co.uk is the website. So they can come to there and be able to look at the information. And if they've got any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions on that. And there's a Facebook group we have as well, Happy Life Habits Community, open to all to join for drips of happiness and positivity.
Thank you. And Shaileen, it's been lovely talking to you about both journaling, gratitude, happiness, and a little bit about neurodiversity in the community and how we need to be talking about this more and raising more awareness and educating people more. And it's people like you, yourself, myself, Depan Patel, who I interviewed before, and then Zoe Bren as well. All of us talking about it more is what's going to help people to realize that they need to understand this a bit more, because the person sitting next to them on the bus or the train, or even within their own families, could have a neurodiverse condition, and if they had more awareness, education, and understanding, they themselves could be more supportive. So we get to the point where we do the quick fire round. And I'm just going to ask you some questions. But before I move to that, I'm just going to ask if there's anything else you'd like to say.
There is. There's two quotes I'd like to share, which I think help definitely help me with understanding about neurodiversity, just awareness in general. So one is the well-known Einstein quote on genius, and he says, "Everyone's a genius, but if you measured a fish's ability to climb a fish's genius by its ability to climb a tree, it would spend its whole life thinking it was stupid." So here the message is that we all have different strengths, and it's becoming aware of what our strengths are and what other people's strengths are, and that's the Einstein genius quote. And there's one by Maya Angelou, which is, "If you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be." And that's just about not trying to fit in with everyone else, and recognize your own uniqueness and be amazing and be different and be divergent. So those were a couple of the thoughts that I had. And just the other quick thing on neurodiversity. My experience, like I said, has been limited on neurodiversity, but films like Rain Man, Tara Zameen Par, the Bollywood movie, the book, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Midnight, are things which have helped to understand a little bit more. And from my own perspective, neurological conditions like Parkinson's and dementia, which my mum suffers with, has helped me become aware that the brain, responds and reacts differently. And sometimes we need to be patient. Sometimes we need to repeat things. Sometimes we need to structure things differently. And it's about having that awareness. So I think the whole raising awareness on everyone is different and being aware of what some of these particular strengths and differences are help us. So that was what I wanted to share.
Oh no, thank you so much for sharing that. And in fact, the Maya quote is one that I really resonate with, because I think from when I was young, it was very clear I was not going to be part of the norm and follow what every Indian girl was expected to do. So yeah, definitely, totally agree with that. So we move to the quick fire round. So question one: what is your favorite animal and why?
Yeah, so my favorite animal is the elephant. So it's the elephant because it's big, it's strong, it's graceful, it's aware of its power, but it doesn't just use its power willy-nilly. It uses it when it needs to. It's part of the community, part of a family, and they look after each other. When the little one's struggling in the water, the elephant helps, take them out. So all of those, reasons are why I like the elephant so much. And plus it connects to my roots in Kenya.
Oh, I love that part. Next question is, if you could do just one thing, there may be 10, but if you could just do one thing to change the world to be a better place, what would it be?
It would be to help everyone be more loving.
As in the whole of society, right from MPs down to us in the local communities. I absolutely love that. Totally. I think if there were more people who were loving, the world would just be a better place. Totally love that. And who is your favorite superhero and why?
Okay, so I grew up in the 70s. So we had Superman, we had Batman, and we had Spider-Man. So all three of them cut the cloth. Spider-Man, a young man who gets bitten by a spider and gets his magical powers. So some transformation occurs. And we know the great quote, with great responsibility, or with great power comes great responsibility. Okay. So Spider-Man is there. Batman, he had his partner, Robin. He became very rich and he used that money for good. Again, an ordinary person. And Superman, he came from another planet and had powers already and he used them for good. But with Superman, it's a slightly more of a connection, because in the 70s when Superman first came on the screen and we saw him flying across, it was Christopher Reeve who played Superman. And then
Yes.
Christopher Reeve had an accident where he became paralyzed, and his journey on how he dealt with that paralysis and that adversity with his mind, and how strong he was about it, and how he, worked with it and helped others. Really powerful story. So that's Superman if it's one, but Christopher Reeve, who played Superman, being the reason why.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And all the reasons behind Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman really ring true. And it's actually interesting how you presented all three of them, because to me, that just shows who you are and your character, and how you're always thinking behind the person. What is happening behind, what do you see, what's happening behind what do you see. And that's a really important and valuable skill to have in life, because often what is in front of you doesn't necessarily show you the bad that's behind. So
Yeah.
a very useful tip there that you've shared with all of us, and definitely with me as well. So Shaileen, I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you so much. Both of us will check the recordings, and if there are any questions, we will respond to those questions and share our comments. But thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me. I'm going to retire you to the waiting room, and then we will have a little chat soon. Thank you so, so much again.
Thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations again on serving with these good intentions.
Thank you so much. So that was Shaileen Shah, happiness coach, happy habits, life, gratitude, living a good life, and making sure that each day is one that you learn from through journaling, whether that be journaling by writing, by drawing, doodling, or even just vocalizing your day, both good and not so good. So thank you again to Shaileen Shah for taking his time on an evening to be here with us. I hope to see you all again tomorrow, when there will be another couple of interviews. These will also be there for replay as well, and you are welcome to type #replay and any comments. If you have any questions, in fact, and you want to get in touch with any of the speakers, just do put that in the comments, and I will make sure that I connect you with them as well. Thank you so much for being here today. A reminder for you, those of you who don't know me, I hope that's not too many, but I'm Sonal Dave, your award-winning Celebrant, Toastmaster, and public speaking expert, just really wanting to raise awareness on neurodiversity, the different neurodiverse conditions, and in particular the neurodivergent mind for adults and children. And this is why I've launched my journals. Thank you for being with me, and I will hopefully speak to you all soon. Bye now.